Hi, welcome to this fabulous panel on the games industry. We are going to be discussing how the games sector has really thrived during lockdown and what the future opportunities are. I'm Louise Connolly-Smith. I'm Head of Creative at London Partners, and I'll be moderating the panel. For those of you who don't know, London Partners is the international trade, investment and promotion agency for London. Games are a leading creative sector for London and the UK. And to put it in context, New Zoo, a really well-known games and esports analytics company, have forecast that in 2020, the global game industry revenue from consumers will be nearly $160 billion, and nearly 2.7 billion people will be playing video games this year. I'm really delighted to welcome our panelists. They are all industry leaders in this sector. We have Roberta Luca, Matt Carroll, and Matthew Morris. They're all going to introduce themselves, and I shall call on them to do that now. Roberta, if you could introduce yourself first.
Yeah, sure. Hi. I'm Roberta Luca, co-founder of Bossa Studios. Bossa Studios is a BAFTA-winning games company. We are almost 100 people now. Most of us still based in London, but quite working remotely, of course. We launched games that are very much weird and wonderful, and they are very, very loved by thousands of influencers worldwide and played by millions of people. We just launched the game, our sequel to Surgeon Simulator, which is one of our biggest games. And it was an amazing premiere, backed by no less than Christopher Lloyd from Back to the Future. Doc Brown went on stage of Gamescom, exactly, and announced Surgeon Simulator 2 is live. So he came from the future to tell everyone we should learn how to be doctors and go into Surgeon Simulator. So that was such a thrilling thing that just happened to us. And we make those games, those weird and wonderful games. Personally, I have a podcast called Hyper Curious, where I interview a lot of incredible people, founders, artists, and leaders in the industry. And I also do angel investing.
Fantastic. Betta, thank you so much, and congratulations on that launch. That does sound great.
Thank you.
Matt, it'd be lovely to hear from you.
Yes, hello, I'm Matt Carroll. I'm the Chief Operating Officer at Sports Interactive. Sports Interactive is based in East London at Stratford. It's the Olympic Park. We have been growing over the last few years, so we're close to 200 people now, and we're famous for making the product Football Manager, which we publish on as many platforms as we possibly can. Likewise, is played by millions. We have a particular challenge in that we're an annually iterated product. So every year we must get that product out, and it needs to be better than ever before. So it's a very special project and a very special studio. Previous to working at Sports Interactive, I've been in the games industry since the mid-90s, did a very long stint at the Walt Disney Company. But prior to that was at Hasbro Interactive and Microprose.
That's fantastic, Matt. I love the fact that obviously both Betta and Matt, you are the people who are contributing to the 2.7 billion people playing video games and spending that money. And Matthew, you have the product that helps. So tell us about yourself and Unity.
Absolutely. So I'm Matthew Morris. I'm the head of sales for EMEA for Unity Technologies. It's hard to avoid the name Unity in the games industry these days, but kind of during the lockdown, we've been had over 1.5 million people using our tools to create content for people stuck at home during the lockdown, and over 8 billion hours of gameplay was taken per month during the lockdown made with Unity titles, which is an incredible statistic. But we really kind of see it as giving people something to do while they're stuck at home and shielding and staying in place.
I think it's really great because I think in a way the three of you really demonstrate the ecosystem, and so it's really fantastic to have you all in. So let's get on to the discussion. Now, I said that the games sector has thrived during the pandemic, which I feel is quite a bold statement. And it's been really interesting hearing, in a way, every one of you has reinforced that you have been, creating games, or you've had users using your platform to create content. So I'd be really interested, and Betta, I'll ask you to go first. Sort of given the current pandemic, what has changed in the games industry?
Yeah, tones have changed, right? We now have all of our workforce, everyone working from home. We actually slowly coming down now, well, going back to the office. We have our office fully kind of health and safety prepared to welcome people back. But the interesting thing is that the moment that the pandemic hit, we went, of course, into overdrive, myself, my co-founders, my C-level team, into making sure that everyone was ready to work from home, right? So we shipped chairs to people's house, tables and laptops and stuff. And what made me so amazed was that, well, twofold. One, people adapted really well to work from home. And I guess we naturally do everything online anyway. We play games online since ever, right? So I think that's down our DNA. And second thing is there was not a hit on our productivity. So case in point, we launched the game that we set out to launch at the time that we set out to launch just last week. So yeah, from a cultural and kind of perspective of people who are making games, it's much more the mental health kind of impact that we have been working towards and with our teams to make sure that people are, kind of thinking on their feet despite being at home all the time, other than the productivity itself and the tools itself to make their work, right? From an industry perspective, you can see all the numbers, right? Everything, we all much more online, so people are playing much more, which is great. It's a way of us escaping the world that's not so good at the moment, and connecting with others. In our case, through humor. In other cases of other games, through connection, through different emotions that people feel when they play games.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, so Matt, you obviously also had to sort of send everyone home. Everyone had to send everyone home. If we could work from home, we did. So how did that work for you guys?
Yes, I mean, it was a very interesting time. We're quite lucky in that we already have somewhere between 20-25% of our team already work remotely or more flexibly. So we were well prepared. I think we learned a lot about what we could do offsite and quite surprised about how efficient you could be. There are definitely downsides. So, I think people thinking that offsite working is the future needs to be slightly balanced with some of the disadvantages that we saw. But there's no doubt that we adapted well, and very different way of communicating. The senior management team went to daily communications, and we've been able to maintain a daily communication style all the way through now. But we invite team members each to choose a day and do their updates. So we've actually probably communicated much better than ever before, and more openly. And again, because the first concern is the safety of your team and how are they and how are their families, and that brings a different conversation. So I think there have been some real positives about how we've worked as a team, maybe building trust and respect for each other in a very different way. You mentioned the mental health side of things, and I think it was very scary. People were really worried and very troubled, and I think people are now troubled about coming back to work, their children going to schools and what that means, but also there's the backdrop of the economies. What's going to happen? Are there going to be jobs out there? What does that mean for me? So I think it's really, really important now to be more reassuring, more transparent, sharing more about what we're thinking, being realistic about where the risks and trade-offs are with team members, so that they can understand, what they can do to contribute and to help. Mental health has been an issue in the industry for some time. It's been well publicized. In some ways, it's not surprising. We have incredible cultural output. We have these amazing people who have got such talent, and it's normal in those populations that you're going to have challenges in mental health. It's well documented there. So I think our industry, more than others, needs to lean in and provide support and opportunities to help people there. And I just think COVID accentuated some issues, created some new ones. And again, there's a lot we could do to help there.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think it's something that we've seen in our sector as well. It's something that our company have really focused on. I mean, Matthew, what have Unity been doing? Because you have more offices. You have more than just one office in the UK, don't you?
Oh yeah, I think we now have at least 6 offices in the UK, and that's probably gone up while we've been on this call. So it seems to be constantly changing. But I mean, we really did we actually kind of went into lockdown and kind of asked people to work from home if they could before it was kind of officially announced. And really just to kind of echo what the other panelists have been saying about actually just kind of making sure that people are not just able to work from home, but are kind of comfortable and have got everything they need to kind of really be working efficiently from home. You know, we put out a fund to help people buy office chairs and desks and monitors and things so that they can have all the tools they need to really work well from home. And really a big focus on making sure that people are getting support and help and connections. Similar to you, Matt, we kind of went from doing a monthly town hall to update everybody on kind of what's going on in the company to weekly town halls where John Riccatello would kind of just touch base and kind of explain what was going on. And I think we've really tried to get ahead of any of the ambiguity or doubt that's kind of around during this time. And there is a possibility that we could go back to an office this year, but we've just made the decision rather than kind of not let people know. We've decided to keep all the offices in the UK closed now until at least the end of this year, so that at least people can then kind of plan for, they're going to be working from home for a long time and they're going to be doing that.
Yeah, I think you touched on something so important, right, in terms of the culture, and Matt as well, is like the key thing for us was how do we move the culture that was very much office based, and you can't afford not having this over communication because people are looking eye to eye, and you have a question, you suddenly you were like less than 1 minute away from talking to someone, right? And suddenly you have to message someone or book a meeting and etc. So that was something that we're still kind of finding the best way to improve the culture and to get people together and continue to have trust on each other as they're working remotely. But what we found, we did a survey internally because we weren't sure if we would go fully remote or if we would start coming back. And 90% of the people at Bossa said that they are very happy to continue to work remotely. And the 2 key reasons why were that they don't need to commute, because commutes are long anyway when you live in London, right? And secondly, they have more quality time with their family. So, and that kind of flexibility, it says a lot about how we end up now bringing ourselves much more into the meetings because we're home, because we kind of you're showing your home to other people, the books that you read, the picture you have on the wall, your kids around. So there's that level of different level of empathy that I think it's been created when we are working from home too. And then that should develop into a different culture of the company.
Yeah, I mean, how many people have had their children or pets interfere when they were on one of these many calls?
Exactly.
I mean, one of the things I'd be really interested in, and I think this is probably for Betta and for Matt, but how do you maintain innovation when you are remote? When, like you said, you're used to being in the office, you're used to being able just to pop over. I know, Betta, you said that you do, monthly game jams. How do you keep that spark with your developers? I mean, I don't know, Matt, do you want to go, or Betta, do you want to go? That must be one of the challenges. Like you said, you had to get this game, well, you didn't have to, but you had a target to get the game delivered and you did it.
Yeah. And it was like, I think everyone was on the same page. We were all like, there's no pandemic that is going to prevent us from getting to our goal, right? So we were all very determined and kind of created a different level of bond with people. Yeah. the key thing for us, so yeah, we do game jams we used to do game jams on a monthly basis, which means that we stop the whole company and we put together, we organize ourselves in teams with a different theme of a game jam, and we typically used to create 6 to 10 games on a monthly basis, right? And they were like, of course, prototypes, but they were all playable prototypes, and the vibe of doing that together was marvelous, because you have all the spark of creativity and the serendipity going on when people are present, right? So when we did the shift, the key team that we were mostly worried about was our ideation team. Of course, we had to put the game jams on hold a little bit, but the ideation team has that all the time, right? They have to be creating new things all the time. So they started to find different tools that allow them to be having those opportunities. So they use tools like, in addition to the Slacks and all the Google Drives of this world, using Miro, they also sometimes just point the camera to them and then just leave the camera on for most of the day so that they feel that they are together. Yeah. So yeah, there are a few things that we started to do to overcome the lack of the spark of creativity that we used to have in the office.
And what have you had, Matt? What tools or what have you seen to sort of continue the innovation in your company?
It's really interesting listening to that. It's quite different for us in a way, but the thing I think that's common is that when you have a clear release date or something that you're trying to achieve, it really focuses the mind and it gives something that everyone can bind to. So we've had a couple of releases going on or approaching releases, and it's been much easier to tie people to that vision. I think the ideation thing would be incredibly challenging. Our studio, our products tend to be software engineering centric with a lot of data and a lot of code heavy approach to making the projects. And this environment has probably suited those sorts of mindsets. So where you've got task lists or problem solving, there's fewer interruptions. You can turn your camera on or off and, get away. So for an engineering side of things, it's probably been very welcome to have some peace and quiet and to focus on. I think where we have really, maybe been challenged is perhaps those longer term and more collaborative, more, as you said, spontaneous and almost frivolous behaviors that you're losing. We're losing that. So I think it means that everyone's got to work that much harder to make that opportunity happen and to make sure that you are putting in the energy and the time to do that. So yes, some things rapidly ahead in this environment, some things need a lot more work.
Yeah. And obviously, Matthew, people totally use your product to be creative. What have you seen? Have you seen people do quite unusual things that you've gone, we've not seen that before?
Well, there's certainly been some kind of new challenges that people are kind of facing when developing games in this environment. Even things as simple as the QA process, where people want to get their game tested properly at each kind of iteration, suddenly having to move large files around through people's home broadband, whereas suddenly, downloading a 15, 20 gig game file to test from home becomes a real challenge. So, a lot of people trying to work out how to solve those problems and kind of how to build those things into their workflows so that they can still carry on with their work and get stuff done in time. So, we've certainly adjusted our kind of roadmaps to, look at how we can support games developers in those sorts of aspects. I think one of the things that we've really seen and heard from the industry is as other content and other media begins to run out. EastEnders is coming back in a couple of weeks' time, I think, maybe next week. But when those sorts of programs run out, people are going to games, and there's a big feeling across the industry that it's our responsibility to keep people entertained and engaged with fresh content at home when traditional TV and film media is struggling to produce the content.
That's something that I'm so passionate about, and that's probably why I love so much being in the games industry. Is that there is the element of agency, right? So you're not consuming something passively as you do when you're watching Netflix or whatever. Despite I love Netflix, by the way, but you know, it's a totally different way of interacting with content, because you're touching on so many levels of your brain to work or to solve puzzles or to work together or to connect with others, right? And when I see, like, in particular, if I mention one of our games is called I Am Bread, and it's a story of a piece of bread whose mission in life is to be toasted. And then if you think about that, it's like when you're playing that game, or when you're watching a YouTuber playing that game, you are connecting with others, and you making yourself laugh. And like this to me is very special. It's like it is what we need at the moment. We need those outlets of moments of enjoyment that our world is unfortunately not giving us so much. So I'm an optimist, as you can see, but I do feel that we have this extra responsibility to continue to bring those magical experiences to people.
Yeah.
Just to add, I would say, you know, the linear industry, TV and movies, they've got a long way to go before their production cycles get up. So games is going to be filling that need for quite a long time yet. I echo what you say. I mean, we feel hugely proud to be able to provide a pastime when people are locked up at home, can't go out, or afraid to go out, that they can escape into a world where, you know, their decisions count and they make a difference.
Can you give some content away during this period?
We did. So very early on, this is Miles's amazing idea. We gave Football Manager away, or it's free access for 2 weeks, March 16 to April 1st. Hugely successful, loads of brand new players, lots of engagement. Yeah, it was really, really good to see.
That's a very sort of, and I think in a way that's one of the things that you see in the games sector. It is a very community driven, you know, people are passionate. You know, I know that, you know, I follow Miles on Twitter. You know, he totally engages with, you know, the people that write to him about, can we do this? And how about that? You know, and I think that's what I see. And I see the same with you, Betta, that, you know, you, like you said, you have a podcast and you are very active in the community. You're both giving back at all times.
Yeah, I think we have that feeling. I don't know. I worked in TV like for 7 years back in the days when I was still in Brazil, and then I worked in the mobile industry, in Nokia and etc. And yeah, I remember have been in the games industry for like 10 years, and I remember just as I was starting how impressed I was with the way that we all collaborate with each other. It almost feels like we don't see each other as competitors, because we're all creating something new. Our drive for creativity is so like on the you know, forefront of what we do, in addition to the business, of course, that we're very happy to collaborate with others, and I think that's special.
Yeah. And that, in a way, Matthew, that's what Unity is doing, isn't it? It's giving people that opportunity to use a platform to do that.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, it's always been our mission to democratize game development and give as many people as possible the opportunity to make amazing content and be that kind of release for that creativity. Certainly during the lockdown, we gave away LinkedIn Learn Premium. And actually, we ran a number of sessions. I think it's tens of thousands of people kind of adopted Unity and started to learn how to make games, and even kind of doing some coding and development of games just from their homes as a new pastime for them. So it was fantastic to see.
I've been seeing a lot of ads from Unity on my LinkedIn.
That's
great. That's great. Great opportunity.
Actually, Betta, one of the questions I have for you, but the others do chime in, is, you know, at the moment, one of the things when lockdown first happened, we really pay attention to what's happening in the VC world. You know, is investment still happening? And I felt that initially the VCs deals were still happening because they had already been set going. But I'm also feeling that they haven't actually closed. You know, when I look at, as in stopped, you know, when I look at Crunchbase, it's not, you know, there's a slight downturn, but not a significant downturn. I mean, seeing as you said you're an angel investor and you've also had investment, it'd be really interesting to know your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so I was scared as well, and I was like, what's going to happen to my investees as well? You know, people with people who are invested in their companies, and of course they were very close to raising their rounds as well. And I came across, well, two observations about that. One, the biggest VC, especially in Silicon Valley, they painted the picture terribly. They went out to say, look, this is going to be terrible. It will only be coming back like end of 2021, 22. And so brace yourselves to keep cash in and to be very frugal because you will have trouble raising funds, right? So that was just in the beginning of the pandemic. And then I came across a particular research that was done in the UK with angel investors across the board, not only for games. And I believe there was something between 60 and 70% of angel investors said they were still active. So that made me believe that actually on the angel investor, like very much in the beginning of the cycle of raising funds, investors were still active. So the best companies still had the chance to get money in. And then later on, three of my investees raised funds, and they raised on the millions. So so raised seed rounds.
Right.
And so that makes me believe again that angel and seed rounds are actually still very healthy. Now, when you go into Series A and B beyond, it might be a little bit more troublesome because you have to have so many things proven in terms of milestones. And if you don't have that, it might be that the money is draining out. But I'm super impressed about the positivity that I've been seeing on the investment side.
Yeah, no, I mean, that's certainly what I've noticed. And it was, I think, exactly what you've just said, that initially people were very much, forget about it, we're done. We're all going into hiding, and that's not actually played out. I don't know, Matt or Matthew, if you have any thoughts on that.
I don't really have a lot of thoughts. My
Yeah.
instinct is it's clever to invest in our sector at this time. It's clever anyway, because this is where innovation technology it all combines. The talent that is in this sector is incredible, and it's rare, and people who are capitalized and have the room to maneuver will make incredible projects that will change the world. So, you know, it's a good place to invest anyway.
Yeah, I would just kind of build on that by saying, I think whenever there's, some kind of global impact event that's going on right now, I think, a lot of people are slightly more conservative with their investments. And, there is a little bit of hesitancy to certainly be starting new projects and kind of making new investments right now. Actually, to your point, Matt, I think that the smart money is investing in games right now because it is such that growth market, and where people are going to be really successful, and where they go really bold right now and do invest and aim to grow what they're doing, because now's an ideal time to do it.
Yeah, and to this point is like if, people who are watching us are the founders and considering creating their companies now, or the games companies, like the best thing is to pay attention to where the behavior is, right? So you see those companies like Zoom and others, they are thriving because they are actually the right solution for the problems that we have at the moment. So if you think through the way that you're creating your game or your product, how is this connecting to something that people need, in addition to, of course, the entertainment side of it? I think you will have like a really good positioning in the market to be prepared, to be ready to receive the best investment that is happening in the market.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I wanted to pick up something, Roberta, that you said about Matthew and Unity, and that's that you've seen lots of Unity ads on your LinkedIn profile. And in fact, for all of you, it'd be really interesting, how do you network in a virtual world? How do you do business development? How do you do, how do you generate sales? Because this is something we talk about internally a lot, and people say, well, really what I want to do is network. But if I can't network in person, how do I network? I'd be really interested to know if any of you have grappled with this, if not, then we can move on. But personally, I think how about Matthew? What have you been doing?
It's kind of a number of things. I think, we've been really looking at, how do we engage with our developers, and both ones that we're kind of already working with, but then potential Unity users as well. And it's been challenging. We would have been in Germany at Gamescom this week. We would have been at GDC. We would be hosting a Unite conference. We're planning to do that in London this year. Yeah. And all of those things are now stopped. But I think the one thing that we're really finding is people are still looking to make those connections. And what draws people in is often thought leadership and kind of content that is relevant to them. So we're really looking at doing as much as we can and transferring that to online, and actually really trying to engage and get feedback from developers on kind of what they need and what they're experiencing at the moment. We're doing it through kind of roundtables, but really just kind of opening up to our developers to keep those conversations going and open up new ones.
Yeah, I'm a people person, so yeah, I was like really, oh my God, I won't be able to see people in real life and connect with them. Having said that, from my perspective, I can talk about like the biz dev side of things for Bossa. Despite the events not happening, we were already lucky to be in a good position that we already had a lot of great connections with our partners, be Unity or Epic or Valve or all of the Microsoft and Sony, all of the ones that we put our games out on, right? So we were lucky on that front that we already had established connections. But I can say from a personal perspective for my podcast, for instance, which I had to reach out to a lot of people to interview them for my podcast. I thought it was incredible that I could interview people from all over the world. Yeah. So suddenly I'm not asking for an hour of the time in London where I have to travel or they have to travel to meet and to do something. It's literally a 1 hour jump in, jump out in a call. And that made me like, yeah, I had interviews with people who are based in LA and in Chicago, in London, in other parts of the country. And that allows so many more possibilities. And it's the same thing with hiring, right? Suddenly, from our perspective, we have been hiring for a lot of different roles and doing all of the kind of online inductions, which are kind of totally different to what we used to do. But at the same time, we're now our recruiters are able to connect with people all over the world to get them to apply to Bossa. Yeah.
And Matt, how has this impacted on Sports Interactive?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with Berta again about people are available now. The travel aspect means that people have got more time. And I was going to say that at the start of the COVID phenomena, when we moved home, time sped up, things went quicker, and maybe those first 8 weeks, we were working at a phenomenal pace. There was a lot to do, a lot to juggle, but we were probably double the productivity initially, and then it's kind of slowed down to a sensible level. And what I've seen is that people are just a bit more organized with their time when they're available and how they're available. There's more flexibility. So I think there's more accessibility there. I think the other thing is the absence of face-to-face communication and going out and stuff has made people want to be more curious about things and to find out a bit more. There was a moment of just got to get this right and sort things out. And I think we've moved on to another stage now where people can afford to be a bit more creative and curious with what they explore and look for. I've certainly felt that with people reaching out to me. And we do some biz dev in the football world. We do a lot of licensing and work with a lot of third parties and things. And I'd say it's never been more interesting. The sorts of queries that we're getting, sorts of conversations, and the reach that we can have has been really positive. So I know our biz devers, we've got 2 in the studio, have never been busier and never had more balls in the air that are quite exciting, but will they come down and can they convert them? So yeah, I definitely feel it's been all right for us on that front.
It's been interesting. I do think that point about people have been open to chat, like you said, Roberta, that you've been able to speak to people in different time zones, and because you don't have to travel, you can make this sort of thing happen. And so there are these odd sort of silver linings that have just changed the way we think about things.
Exactly.
You know, that I think it's just sped up. I mean, I think in a way the game sector is already very innovative, so it's probably slightly ahead, but I think everyone else has been catching up going, oh, look at this, we can do all these other things.
I had a series of virtual dinners. So yeah, a friend of mine put together virtual dinners, and there was always a speaker, and then we had dinner together. We showed our plates to each other. So like, yeah, it feels very unnatural, right? If you think about that, like 6 months ago, and I don't know, a year ago. But now you start to kind of reinvent the way that you connect with people, the way that you do things together.
Yeah. I think that togetherness is something that you sort of, like you said, you'd find other ways of being together, even if it's not in real life. I'd be interested to know, and this is, I don't know if you can think of this, but, you know, we've sort of talked about, Roberta, you talked about Slack and Google, and obviously we're on Zoom, but it'd be interesting to know, you know, what do you think the new technologies are or could be? You know, you talked about Miro. I mean, which of you, you know, who has used something? I mean, for me personally, Zoom has been, you know, just it's been extraordinary. I've got both my parents on it, so you know that's just amazing. But you know what it'd be really interesting to know what you've all sort of, or what you know what you've really used, or what you think there might be coming. So future gazing, if there's that opportunity.
I think Zoom has been absolutely fantastic. I mean, we used Zoom heavily before all of this, and now it's even more so, to the point where Zoom fatigue is a real thing.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, the turning up to another agendaed Zoom call does get tiring. We're actually just switched to Zoom free Fridays, just to give people a break from Zoom, and we kind of try and at least carve out one day a week where you don't have to be on camera. You can turn that off and wear whatever you like, and you don't even need to put a shirt on. And I think so. We're certainly trying to balance kind of all our approaches. Really, a big focus for us, I think, is just, you know, helping improve our tools to support the developers while they're working from home, and how can we make those workflows even more efficient.
Yeah, we have been experimenting a lot of different tools, and yeah, definitely Miro is one of them. Slack, of course, it's we started to have different way to interact with each other on Slack. We also started to experiment with a lot of plugins on Slack that create some sort of quizzes and different things that people kind of get together. Google Suite as well has been super helpful. And yeah, like what I mentioned, that some teams are like pointing the camera for a long time to themselves and just working, not looking at the camera, but just feeling that they are on the same environment, so to say. Yeah, what else have we been using? Yeah, I think these are the key ones. Oh, yeah, we just started to use Beacon, which I'm fascinated about. So it's like I'm super happy to talk about it, because it's basically an engagement, a sentiment tool that you just measure engagement with the employees. So they just answer a few questions every few days about how they're feeling, about, you know, their work, the team, the stuff that they do at the company, and then this kind of a score. Of course, everything is anonymous, but we always feel like the pulse of the organization, how people are feeling from a general perspective. That's been super helpful for us.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. What about you, Matt? Is there anything Sports Interactive have been doing a lot of?
I wouldn't say it's particularly different from what I've heard. We're on Teams. I would say that maybe the year before, when we migrated to Teams as a chat and sort of communication tool internally, people were a bit skeptical about it. It's come into its own, and actually the video has been absolutely amazing, really. It's good to see those companies are innovating as well, and they're updating the software and they're adding more features. I wish they would move a bit faster, frankly, but you know, it's been a welcome surprise at how good those tools have been, and it's made a big difference. I think one of the things that we did is we obviously sent everyone home, and we were using virtual machines from day one, and that's great because something goes down, you've got one point to fix it. So that some of those things kind of we might not have done as much. It got accelerated, and you know, the need to make sure the infrastructure's right, servers are bigger, do more, you know, all that got upgraded. And actually that will leave us more robust going forward. So it's sort of an injection to the power of the studio, if you like. So again, it's when something maybe unexpected happens, the outcome is probably a much better performance for everyone.
Yeah.
So it's good.
It accelerates things that you were thinking, oh, we'll do. And then all of a sudden you go, okay, now we've done it because there wasn't a choice. I'm really aware that we're running out of time. So I want to say thank you all so much. I'm going to do a sort of quick summary. I mean, I think it's been really interesting to hear about the mental health and how you're dealing about it internally, how you're all supporting your teams, the tools you're using, whether it's Slack or Zoom or Teams or Google or Pecan, which I'm going to check out. But thank you all so much for your insights. Thank you for sharing. And I'm going to say goodbye, and we're all going to say goodbye, and we're going to wave goodbye, just in an enthusiastic thank you for joining. So thank you all so much, and bye all.
Thank you.
Goodbye. Thank you
very
very much. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.